You're probably wondering, as am I, what am I doing on this stage? It turns out I have an irrational love for putting myself in deeply uncomfortable situations, like speaking right before Michael Oshman. I mean, literally she wrote the book on what would you do if you weren't afraid. I did actually spend some time thinking about what would I do if I wasn't afraid. And after some contemplation, I came to the conclusion I would permanently mute all my school WhatsApp groups. But I'm not that level of brave just yet. So, speaking of moments that require courage, when I was 17 years old, my dad announced at the dinner table that he was starting a chain of beauty salons called Sorbet. Bit of an odd industry choice, since this was a man who thought Brazilians were people from Brazil. But alas, off he went bravely into the unknown, into the wonderful world of manicures and moisturizers. I decided to join the business straight out of university, armed with my shiny marketing degree. It was a very small company. We only had 10 stores at the time. So unfortunately for me, there was no marketing department. So my dad put me in HR, and my basic job was to approve therapists' leave all day. Turns out I'm only actually really good at approving my own leave, so they try to find somewhere a little bit more helpful for me in the business, and I suggested I could start the marketing department. Let's try get the Sorbet brand out there. I think they had to agree. It did need an intervention. At that point, many landlords still thought we were a frozen yogurt joint, and off I went. I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. And to make matters worse, I wasn't exactly drowning in credibility. I was the boss's daughter after all. I was in way over my head, but I was determined to discover, how do I make people fall in love with this brand? I had to figure out a lot on my own. Every step was a little bit of success and a little bit of stumbles that slowly taught me what worked and what didn't work. It wasn't always pretty. Each mistake came with a lesson, and each small win just slowly built up my confidence. 4 years on, and the business and my career really started gaining momentum. I was working around the clock. We now had over 50 stores and an official marketing department with 6 people in it. I was all in, driven, energized, and just completely dedicated to building the success of this brand. Sorbet was growing, and so was my belly. And so, my first child, Maya, was due in that December 2012. I was overjoyed. But the deeper truth, I was also terrified. I couldn't help but think to myself, how on earth was I going to do both? How was I going to give my whole heart to my daughter and my whole energy to my business? Worse, I was about to become that dreaded thing, a working mom. A title that somehow just comes loaded with so much expectation and so much guilt and so many unsolicited opinions. But I just want to add that no one has ever called my husband a working dad, by the way, but I digress. Anyway, labels aside, I knew one thing for sure. I was not about to choose between being a mother and building something I truly believed in. I was going to find a way to be both, even if it meant rewriting my own rules as I went along. And so I made bottles, and I ran boardroom meetings, and I organized play dates, and I brainstormed marketing strategies. I perfected the art of answering emails one-handed while pureeing butternut with the other. Motherhood and business were not two separate worlds for me. They just constantly collided. I'd leave a high-stakes strategy meeting only to negotiate with my toddler about wearing pants. I'd celebrate a record sales month and then come home and feel super guilty about missing bath time. At work, I was decisive and confident, and at home, I second-guessed everything. I was expected to show up at work like I didn't have a baby, and show up as a mom like I didn't have a business. And the truth, I was always just both, messy, exhausted, and imperfect. Very often, the only way I could do both was with the help of the incredible mothers and my own mother in my world. When I had to travel, I would call them up. Straight away, they would say, schedule me in. When I was running late, they did an extra school drop-off without a hesitation. And when I couldn't be there, they gave my child an extra hug. And when I was completely overwhelmed, forgotten lunchboxes, missing leotards, last-minute chaos, they quietly packed an extra one and never, ever made me feel like I was failing. We are so incredibly blessed to have an army of mothers like this in this community who show up, who lift us up, and who remind us that actually none of us are meant to do this alone. This Jewish community is nothing like you will ever find anywhere in the world. When I fell pregnant 3 years later with identical twin girls, I thought, I've got this. I mean, I'd now mastered the art of juggling baby and business. How much harder could this be? Spoiler alert, so much harder. Not even the mothers knew what to do. Suddenly, my carefully balanced chaos turned into full-blown survival mode, and gone was any illusion of having it all together. Plus, they were so identical, I could feed the same baby twice. I was outnumbered and outsmarted, and for the first time in my life, I had to make a choice. Do I step back, or do I keep trying? I left Sorbet in 2018. It was the right time. We had sold the business and my whole family was moving on. But I felt a mix of emotions. When you leave something, even if it is on your own terms, it still stings. I also felt a little lost. For so many years, Sorbet was just part of who I was. And now I just wasn't sure what came next and who I could be. But as I would soon learn, endings are just disguised beginnings. And this wasn't the end of my story, just the beginning of a new chapter. I started Joy Joy with my incredible partner, Danny Silberman, who's in the room there. Our own little sneaker starter, built on blind optimism and this crazy belief that we could create something special. Michal, I think we would both agree that this is what we would do if we weren't afraid. We jumped headfirst into the unknown with nothing more than an idea, all of our savings, and our 5 kids to raise. If there's one thing we have come to learn, it's that starting a business is actually a lot like raising kids. You never really know what you're doing. You just show up, you give it all you've got, and most importantly, you surround yourself with people who make the journey worthwhile. We've worn every hat possible: CEO, customer service, delivery driver, accountant. That one was a mistake. We've had wins that made us feel unstoppable and losses that have made us question our life choices. But through it all, we have built something real, something that brings joy to kids and to parents. We're now in 4 countries, about to be 5. We signed Disney last year, and we feel like it's just the beginning. And as for that infamous balance, it's a myth. Success is knowing what needs more of you right now. Sometimes your career will need more of you, sometimes your family will, and sometimes you will need more of you. My 3 girls are doing great. We've just celebrated my special daughter Maya's bat mitzvah. I actually had my bat mitzvah in this hall 27 years ago. And my twins, Ellie and Libby, have finally stopped crying and are turning into bold and beautiful little individuals. I have 2 rules with my girls in my life. Number 1, you show up. Whether you're scared, afraid, think you're going to come dead last. If you show up for life, tell them this all the time, life will show up for you. And number 2, most important, be kind. That is a non-negotiable in my household, and everything else we can discover as we go. I feel very grateful that my husband also shares these values so strongly in our household. And to sum it all up, life will just never be perfectly balanced. We juggle, We drop the ball, we pick it up, we figure it out. You are not alone. Let's change that conversation. Let's stop pretending to make it look easy, because it's just not easy. Let's rather embrace the chaos. Let's find joy in the mess. Let's be grateful for this incredible community. Because at some point in your life, you will stand at the edge of something terrifying, afraid, and uncertain. Do it anyway. Because I live with this hope that one day when I stand before Hashem, I can say, I used all of it, everything you gave me, every last drop. Thank you so much for having me this morning. It was a pleasure talking to all of you.